Hello, everyone. I'll give you a second to get connected to sound. Hello, and welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 1279th New Social Environment. I'm Magley, a programs associate here at the Rail, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a conversation featuring Tommy Kha and Billie Mandle. And now I'll introduce today's guest and host. Tommy Kha is a photographer currently based in Brooklyn. Ka holds an MFA in photography from Yale University, where he currently teaches. He is a 2025 Guggenheim Fellow. He is previously a recipient of the Hayes Prize, Next Step Award, and Foam Talent, and NYSCA and NYFA Artist Fellow. Currently, Ka studies Kung Fu under Sifu Ken Lo. He joined the gallery Higher Pictures in 2022. His first publication, Half Full Quarter, was published by Aperture in February 2023, and his first solo museum exhibition opened at the Addison Gallery of American Art in September 2025, and that is the subject of today's conversation. And our host today, Billie Mandle, is an artist and professor of photography at Massachusetts College of Art and Design. Her projects have been supported by fellowships from Lightwork, Yaddo, the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and a research grant from the University of California, Los Angeles Archives. Her books include Reconciliation, Stellar Skytron, Circumference, and Ascender. And now I will hand it over to Billie to get us started.
Thank you so much, Magley. It's really an honor to be here. And I'm very excited to be in conversation with Tommy today. Good afternoon, Tommy. How are you?
Hi,
And hold on one second. There we go. I hope you are well. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Billy? I think we're in
Good.
between classes, right?
Yes, we're both between classes, and hopefully our students are watching. So congratulations on receiving the Hayes Prize on this exhibit and on the forthcoming catalog. It's been such a pleasure these last few days to spend time with your work and on this exhibit and to sit with your image. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I thought we would begin at the beginning of the show itself, and specifically your chain letter project, which I think is what we're looking at now. How did the project come about, and then why did you choose to begin the exhibit with it?
Um, yeah, it's really something that came out of the Baxter Street show I did in 2023. I think I'm going to refer to a lot of things I not see in the slideshow, but a lot of this work came through that show, and a lot of things that were happening specifically that was the catalyst for the Chain Letter Project and how the show came about was there was just putting together a book and the show for Baxter Street, not this show, was a lot of anti-Asian sentiment, a lot of people like Michelle Guo and Christina Lee being murdered. When I was starting to think about presenting and doing more exhibitions through these prizes. Fast forwarding to one of the rooms that we ended up doing was the start of the Chain Letter Project at Baxter Street, which has continued through the faculty and students participation in the second iteration. So I didn't want to do a show completely with all my faces in every photograph that is going to fill every room. It just felt really too much about me without referencing the things going outside of myself. So wanted to start the first room with the themes of of the museum exhibition with collage, and through that with the faculty and students participation and creating the pieces. So I wanted the first room to honor teachers and the students that have really helped me be an artist. And with Hector Junko, uh, Renee, David, Julia, the faculty at Phillips Academy, and even Andover High School, Middlesex Community College, and Central Catholic High School all got to participate and try to set up the theme within the first room when people walk in. So that's not necessarily my work, but really drawing people's attention to the communities that really inform my practice in some way.
Yeah, and themes of collaboration, which is also so important to your project. I like that that's how you began the exhibit. What were some of the prompts that you gave to the students?
Oh man, there was a few. I'm going to try to bring it up without making it look like I'm reading my notes on my computer. But one of them, I just got done updating that. We carry some of the prompts over from the original. The first set of participants for the chain letter were pictures done by my Asian friends. Could we go back to the first room, first slide, please? And uh, though some of the photographers ended up creating prompts for the future. Richard Choi said photograph an obsession. They're really, really meant to be, these prompts are meant to be suggestions, but really open-ended prompts for everybody is a theme subject matter around family and community. I felt those are things that are important to me, especially I feel those themes aren't as apparent in my photographs that we will see and later in the other rooms in this exhibition. The other prompts, find and photograph a place that shares letters in your name. Make a picture with your friends navigating your way in a new place. One's from Phillips Academy faculty. Eat a meal together and pass the camera around the table to have everyone take photos at random times during the meal. It's from Marissa, super kind of
Yeah,
accessible.
that's really great. So there's quite a few bodies of work that are in this show, right? Could you talk a little bit about how, for people who haven't been over to Andover yet, what are the what are the bodies of work that are represented, and how are they sort of organized throughout the exhibit?
Yeah, I worked with Allison Kammerer and Gordon Wilkins and Rachel Vogel mostly to lay out this exhibition. This was a biennial prize through the Hayes Prize Initiative, nominated by the Addison's Artist Council. I have no idea who nominated me. Thank you guys so much, or those who just have just placed their eyes and look at my pictures. It just does mean so much, especially of someone that I spend a lot of time making pictures and never really think about what it means to hang multiple bodies of work. And I think through doing these talks, like Alice and Ali saw, we can go to the next, the hallway slide portion after the collage work. And Ali just saw me do talk about this work, and this room wasn't considered. This is the self portrait work that I started through for a while. A lot of my work is long form. I have a really terrible time of knowing when to end things. Uh, and I think it shows through with my picture editing process, but I accumulated a lot of things very similar to hoarding, I believe. This whole show is really was preface around the cutout work, the pointing my camera to cutouts of myself, which we'll see, but it is the first time seeing through this museum show. This is my first museum show, seeing all these different bodies of work in a physical way. All this lived on my computer or some various test forms because I didn't really have a ongoing studio in New York City where I live. And a lot of these pictures I don't get to spend time with and playing around with presentation and format. And so all of this, the alignment of the show and thinking about how my work is out in the world that really came together through this and through the support of people who were not used to seeing or familiar as familiar with my work and just seeing things that I was so dismissive with these pictures of like this has nothing to do with self-portraiture, but it is really made through biographical things that were happening around me. I think some of it people might read into the removing myself from the picture. These are test pictures. A lot of them are where I was meant to stand in, but often they're coming from a autobiography portion without having to do this kind of seriality of just pointing the camera to an image of myself, which is fine and dandy.
No, and you can really tell that you took this opportunity for this show to really experiment and play. And I wonder, Magley, do you mind going back 2 slides? I wonder, Tommy, how did you choose to, yes, like like for these, how did you choose to put the small images on the bottom and why are some of them covered up? How did this installation strategy come about?
Oh man, I think after Ali made the suggestion to include this work, and it it's something I think comes from me being unsatisfied with my own picture making, that there's something very limited about a singular frame to try to tell a whole story. And a lot of these threads, again, are coming from the Baxter Street show. I know a lot of people may not have seen that show, but I think every time I do an exhibition has been a really great, again, lack of studio space. So it has been such a great time to hopefully align everything in a interesting presentation of using photography as a form of time travel, as a form of something that I'm interested in, is knowing that the picture is already a ready-made fragment. Right? There's something cropped out from behind us. It's definitely things to the left, right side of the frame, above and below us. And I started to place pictures of these small calibers, one to mix in the different printing techniques using both digital chemistry, commercial type printing, and making my these exhibition prints. This is all combination of pigment, UV commercial printing, and digital chemistry prints. And I wanted the small prints to be this kind of way as a through line behind a lot of these pictures that are in this room, and wanting to allow moments where people aren't able to see a picture and to kind of reflect a very simplistic way of equating it to experience and memory and immigration, is that it's fragmented. The experience is knowing that we see the image, but not being, or knowing that it's there, but not being able to fully assess it.
It seems to come, that seems to really connect to the title of the exhibition, which is something I was going to ask you about. Maybe could you talk a little bit about the idea of other things uttered and the idea of the way that you in your the way that you play with the idea of language and visual language in your work, right? That there's kind of there's an incompleteness to the way that you approach language, right? And I think so many times, I think language sounds something like something very solid and something very structured, but you're kind of letting it crumble in a way, in the way that you sort of take apart images literally. And I wonder, yeah, how did the title come about? And could you talk about that a bit?
I wonder if it's just because my refusal to use Photoshop so much. It's like I hate being behind the
That
computer. Like, let
professor.
me do stuff for the camera. Yeah, I keep forgetting to cite Teresa Hakian Chaw's dictate. I don't know if I ever am pronouncing it right. I just feel like it is such a her work, her book, Dictate. It's that seminal work. Other things, other the show title
Love
is
that
from a
title.
performance piece that it was called "Other Things Seen, Other Things Heard." I'll read a quote if y'all remember to remind me, because this Dictate is such a amazing Asian American experience about fragmentation using different mediums of not just text but found appropriation, and then the way it's set up really influenced the Aperture book, the Half Full Quarter, and including this the show on top of the show title itself. I think of any experience outside of Asian American experiences has to deal, especially people of color, trans, LGBTQ. I think everyone can relate to the fragmentation. If it's not the fragmentation of the theme, it's really coming through with the simplicity of covering up pictures, fragmenting them in a very visual, or even using the crop as the cutting, the gesture itself. And there's a through line that we'll see in the third room, the last room, of just moving from the cutout as a subject matter, and now kind of in my weird golden era of experimentation of just pushing what it means to fragment and collage in very different ways. That has already been available to photography, you know. Yeah.
How do you, so I would like to stay with collage for a second,
Yeah.
right? So how do you do use collage, but maybe not in a traditional sort of, way, right? And I wondered, yeah, how do you think about collage? And then I guess collage is so connected to the body in your practice. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's been such a way of thinking about photography. I was trying to not to be so serial about it to remove this kind of linearness. Like photography can be read chronologically. It does not need to be shown linearly. I
Mm.
think it's the most perfect way to talk about traveling through time. These things are immediately of the past. There's showing a picture that is a ready-made present, right? A ready-made future photograph. I think those are possible images, but I think we're always stuck in a defaulted way of making images that is of the fragmented past. They're of the past. There's no way around that. But I think there's something really magical about it that I wasn't really conscious about collage as a parent. And in fact, sorry to just be talking about images that
Mhm.
aren't here, but
Mhm.
just to streamline everything. The Aperture book with Half Full Quarter, it was Leslie Martin that made the suggestion of showing a section of collage, mostly to make up for the fact that I hate writing, and it's like, please don't make me write more. And I was like, oh, why don't you just do this collage? Because it's already kind of happening, and I didn't like doing that and then realizing how much that section of that book informs so many things. So I really think Leslie and Alex Lynn of Studio Lynn to pointing those things out, that loose thread, that connection, that surprise with photography that I really enjoy. And somehow intro I went maybe introducing is a bad word to collage, but it really made so many things made so much sense of why I work in it, why I should be working in a medium of fragmentation, of performance, of photography, of collage.
Mhm.
And then being provided this museum space, very intimidating, especially the last room, even sticking with this picture. This is a detail of the installation. Like there's this allowance of what I was limited by with the photograph, making these frame pictures. I was trying to bend these prints. Like, if you're familiar with me, and I think this is in a slide that we'll get to, there is this kind of fold, being able to occupy more than one space with the print and trying to explore what is possible with, it's easy for me to do these flat rectangular images, even, but what happened during 2020 when we all got stuck,
Mhm.
um, when we all got in lockdown, was I was already deconstructing my images, my photographs. I was printing my southern landscapes and self portraits exactly on these backdrops just to make them more interesting because I thought the southern landscapes I was making were not as good as Sally Mann. It was not as good as a Christian Berry, and I was like, let's maybe trick people to printing it on a cooler surface like fabric and then I was told I couldn't leave, and that's when we started exploring our archives and this thing where I started to cut things out. I don't know what possessed me. I was already kind of already there in the mindset, photographing my cutout form, right? I started making photographs, photographing my cutout. In a variety of ways of masks, 3D printed masks, making them by hand using third-party companies that would somehow, yeah, this is cool. Let's make like 10 cardboard cutouts of this one Asian person. And I don't know, there's something satisfying seeing this fragmented photograph and in the mail, you open up a box. I'm opening up my these FedEx boxes and my face is staring at me. You know? 5 years making this piece
Wow.
was so worth it. So worth like seeing all of it that I think photography failed at showing this to me, but it did give me the building blocks to lead me to things that I've kind of already inherently there in the medium.
My students this morning were reading an interview with Laura Latinsky where she talks about how she cannibalizes her own work. And I think that phrase actually really applies to this installation, in a way that you're sort of working with your own work to create something so completely new like that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Anyways, I wanted to pick up on something that you've said a couple times now, this idea of time travel. And I wonder what you talked about a possible future image. How do you think about photographing the future? What does that mean for you in your practice?
Oh man, I did. It's so hard because it's like I mean, I have this Ocean Vuong quote that I just live by because it's so good from On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. I wrote it down with my notes. This is me reading my notes and it being it's only the children return, only the future revisits the past. And it's just like that's so true. Like how much of us are we are no longer the future, but we are still going towards it. And it's only us that has the entitlement, the privilege to do such a thing. Like time travel is an entitled, privilege, invention if that we ever get to that point, and a space to be in. And I think it's part of my work is trying to collapse space time, trying to merge the past with the contemporary present with the my own future because it's coming from to be more to be elaborate my background is I can't my family has fled two countries in the last 80 years alone, like from China to Vietnam, and my family stayed after the fall of Saigon because they were neutral, and as a result, my mom got sent to labor camps. I say all of this is because I cannot trace anything back before 1950. I literally cannot trace things back without a DNA test, and even then, it's filling in the gaps of this fragmentation. And I think it's just I keep saying fragmentation is going to be overly used at the end of this like conversation. Like I got to find a new word for the fragmentation, but it is this thing that we have to live and reconcile with because that's all we have, right? And what does that mean? Do we synthesize it? Do we composite that past, that fragment, that puzzle piece, right, with what we're doing? And I think that's what everyone is watching in real time, especially installation is not my forte. That's I just never given this the space or the opportunity to do so. And so to think about these ideas and then trying to physically make it are two different um, uh, horse races. Is that a metaphor? I don't know how, that analogy. Uh, and doing the show about uh, time collapsing, about the dialect leveling, about trying to be okay with what piece or pieces that we have. It's never the full picture. How do we reconcile with that? And so I think there's something kind of amazing and magical that came through the installation, through this kind of presentation of the works in many ways. So I'm always really thankful for this opportunity. I think this is just such a great space and opportunity to just do all this. And honestly, I thought it was not enough work.
I love that. I mean, I think fragmentation is an important way of approaching that because fragmentation goes back to this idea of something that's unutterable, right? Things that can't be said, or that they're kind of an incompleteness, right? And photography always seems so slick and so complete, but it really isn't. Um, and I wondered if you could talk maybe a little bit about then how do you think about self-portraiture in relationship to this fragmentation, right? Because I mean, your work is, you started by talking about self-portraiture. Everyone talks about self-portraiture in your work, but we haven't discussed it specifically. So self-portraiture, Tommy.
Oh, self-portraiture time. It's so funny. I feel like I'm in a headspace to talk less about myself over the years because I think I made a real mistake of just like, why did I do self-portraiture? Now everyone can recognize my face. And that's why I have the mustache. Partially, I have the mustache just to disguise myself. Yeah, I just I feel like I still have the same issues that I started in 2010. I can mark the time, the year that I turned the camera to myself was when I came to New York. And it was the year of Marina Abramovic's The Artist is Present, also the year of Tina Segal at the Guggenheim, What is Progress? Um, and there's I just never seen performance art. I think self-portrait for me was never straight on like a Cindy Sherman or Claude Cahun or Gillian Wearing, and those are like my favorite people to think about. So there's a longer list, y'all. It's not just those three. Uh, but I think I have a hard time talking about myself. But mostly because I don't think I'm that interesting. I think it's a kind of a healthy headspace, especially with content creating, social media. And is our biography necessarily important to talk about? I don't think I'm that important. I don't think my background, my family's history is that as interesting as someone else's. Like there are definitely great people that have gone through very, if not similar alignment to how they got here, how their parents got here. And I'm a child of immigrants. I'm a child of immigrants who did not finish a high school level education or taken art classes, you know? They're like that stuff was not available. And so the relationship to photography, let alone self-portraiture, is way different within my mom and my generation. And I just to answer the question, the self-portraiture is this, it didn't start out as a fragmentation. It definitely still has the parameters of not being about me, but also about my community, about my family's history, about what does it mean to synthesize these various identities that's not been pronounced in this country, let alone in the Western world. What does it mean to be Asian in the West outside of the United States? And realizing through various research, things that do not come up directly with the cutouts, but something I come across is like the first Chinatown was this marketplace in Manila in 1594.
Hmm.
You know, there's really small information that I have to hunt for, and I have to do self-portraiture. I have to incorporate collage. I have to incorporate performance and prop making and third-party companies and chemistry and digital to get to these small bits of information to start putting together. I don't know. I think we're best defined as a collage, like a quilt rather than a composite.
I like that in terms of both your work and in terms of right thinking about one's own history and one's own sense of self. I wonder about how do you, well, I guess how do you approach all of that history when you are making the work actually, right? Like, is that what's front of mind? Do those things come after? What is that process like for you?
I feel like some of it is always like, okay, how do I not make a picture of myself? And there's like my friends are like, oh, oh, no, 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 you need to be in front of the camera. Like there's not many that do this. I think there's self-portrait is really easy. I feel like I'm not answering your question, I'm just avoiding
That's
that.
okay.
Like the question. What was your
It's
question?
okay. It's okay. I'll give you a different question. Because when either the curator Rachel Vogel was talking about your work, and she uses these three words, which I thought were really lovely: memory, memorials, and mourning. And there's a kind of joy, but there's also a kind of sadness to your work, right? It's like this kind of paradox that you manage to walk in the images. Like this image that we're showing right now, it kills me. Anyways, can you talk about that kind of joy and that kind of memorialization or sadness that your work incorporates?
Man, I think this is why I have a terrible time of knowing when to end things or end a project. It's all part of this curiosity of just continue having these ideas and not knowing if it's going to land or not. That's part of the process. It's hard to stay with um something, especially if you look at all those pictures, especially in the background, how many different strategies I use in different images, and they still in the same room. They kind of make sense thematically, or really just an exercise of trying to find a synonym for self-portraiture, right? I think all of those are within the wheelhouse of of what is possible, and trying to create something as interesting, especially how our identities are always differently informed. We change every day with new information. So I always strongly encourage like education does not end, right? Education is every day. It's not just going to undergrad and graduate school, and that we change as people when we are presented with new information, with truth, with facts, right? And new skill levels. And then to a science biological level, that we shed cells and regrow them every day. So what part of us is original? And when I make these self-portraitures, is the question, is like this imperfect way of photographing. And it goes back to Susan Sontag's photography is an inventory of our mortality. I am very interested in how time changes for me, how not just the camera or techniques or what is accessible for me and what materials are available, but how not just my body, but compositionally, my aging, the way that I strategize making an individual picture over time and looking at it is this passage of time. This is what is the best representation of my image. It changes, right? Because it changes depending on who looks at us. There's that Dean Arvis quote too of like what it's there's that intersection of what you want people to know about you and what you cannot help what people know about you.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is like what my
Yeah,
work is. Um, I'm trying to start that with the front room, just through collage and not trying to say those elements. And then to do this essentially three different bodies of work, well, four if we count the installation, and still trying to carry those themes in different forms. And not trying to be out of calling myself a photographer. I'm still a photographer. Don't get me wrong. I'm still a photographer. Capital P, maybe.
Um, well, so could you? Okay, I was going to talk about the installation, but I want to go. I want to go back to the pictures, some of the older pictures once
Yeah.
more. And could you talk a little bit about your collaboration with your mother, Tommy?
Yeah, this one's not of my mother. Is
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
this
that's the one because we just went right past it. I couldn't get the question in fast enough, but yes,
You're good. No, Magley, you're doing so great.
I know,
Amazing.
Matt. Thank you, Magley.
Yeah, I love you guys. And there is this, I think kind of answering what you're pointing out with Rachel using memorial, uh, the other three M's, memory,
And
memorial.
morning.
Morning, yeah. I think there's a bit of things that come out of collaboration with my family. I think I'm not the first photographer to photograph with their mom, with their parent. That's always been a thing since the 1850s, right? But I think there's something kind of amazing for us to be a cutout of our parents. We inherit half our DNA from our parents generally, and how much of this information that I'm trying to look for by pointing the camera at a space at a Chinatown interior to my family members, to people that might not be related to me but might look like me or might share a fragmented experience or context that is related to things I'm interested in. I feel like those really play out with photographing this collaboration with my mom. It is one of the things that have been the crux of my work. But I think overall, I think we've hit upon it at the beginning is this collaboration. You know, I photographed with different people at the beginning. My mom wasn't always the first collaborator. But there's something about her inclusion. It's not just about my mortality, my inventory of my mortality, but also the people around me. No matter how fragmented, like maybe my mom is photographed more than my aunt, than my grandmother, and does it have to be the same level? Does it have to hit all those notes every time? And I think that's why I shift strategies a lot, just to kind of explore what is possible, and then positioning my mom, which is something that occurs outside of this loose body of work. It's she appears in other projects and other ideas that might not be projects because she was someone that wanted to help. And I think there are years where it's not apparent in the photograph. You have to look at the dates, and there are times where we're fighting. This is I have not made a picture this year in the last year of her because I think that is true. Not all parent and child relationships are as simple. They're complex. They're dynamic, right? And I think that's a work for contemporary artists in general is that we shouldn't stay in one place. We should, like, yes, chip away at what we're very obsessed by. I'm going to use my Richard Choi's words, obsessed by, and see how that obsession changes in over time. And it's our job to make sure that we don't return to the same spot. And if we do, that it's something new that we're rediscovering that wasn't there before, or that was there, but we just never looked at it in that way. And I think that's something that is available in every medium.
That's great. I love that. Has she what were her thoughts about the exhibit, Tommy? Did she spend
It's so, I think because of my family's lack of interest in art, it's always like, well, as long as you're not in jail, that's all that's important to them. On drugs and as long as I'm not on drugs or in jail. My mom has seen my pictures over time, and it's not that she's uninterested. I can only describe it as disinterested. It's more bemusement than amusement, right? It falls somewhere between that, and I kind of love that that fractured way, that kind of almost as puzzling, not fully committed to responding to these pictures because he is collaborative, but will also get mad at each other like any normal people will in any kind of familial relationship. And yeah, it's pretty much all of that. She's, I think, like my family members, are very proud that I'm not in jail. Uh, and that it is very much about. I think they see me more as a teacher. I think that's why I always position teachers to be most important in my life, and why I'm still one. I think there's a bit of kind of humor to that. My grandmother, when she was alive, was never called me an artist. She's like, he's a teacher, a very successful teacher. I'll take it.
That's great. I can identify with that. So now that the work has been up in the museum for a while and you've had a chance to sort of live with it, how does it feel? To see all of the all of the different bodies of work together and to have the installation interacting with the photographs? What are your thoughts and reflections?
Oh my gosh. I feel like, well, I'm definitely, my friends who know me, I don't really spend a lot of time enjoying these things because it's like, it's always work with me. It's always work. I'm thinking about pictures. I'm thinking about the next ideas. And I think that's what makes me an intense person. I want to be surprised. I want to do something that not necessarily hasn't been seen before, but how do I get there myself? So seeing it all, first, it's just overwhelming, amazed. I'm just amazed that people like the Addison Artist Council, the Hayes Prize Initiative, Rachel, Gordon, Allison, Allie, Lester, even. There's just this kind of, it feels amazing to be looked at. It's one thing to think of yourself as an artist. It's another thing when people start treating you as one, and not like because you're a queer person or because you're Asian or because you're from the South. Those things are very, very much important for me to make my photographs, to create this motivation to seek out these curiosities, but it's not everything in my work. I've had galleries that are just really dismissive. Chelsea Gallery in 2015 is like, you can't do both queer and Asian work because that stuff doesn't sell. And it's like, that's my concerns. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna make what I need to make at the moment. Because it just ends up like this installation I would not be able to do if I was just thinking about photographs, if I was just thinking about one thing.
Um, and are you planning to make like more of these installations? Is this a path forward for you, do you
Yes.
think? Yes?
Yeah, I feel like I'm just giving myself an excuse to print and then making terrible prints and then like I don't want to be wasteful, but I do like recycling a lot. And the piece, the Flatlands, this installation is called Flatlands as part of the exhibition. It was definitely something wasn't as thought about. It was definitely a crown jewel of trying to move all of this out of my bedroom. This was all living in boxes and like just various tote bags and just like yeah, just it was just crazy to get this out of my studio and into a space that just so large. And you know, I'm in a New York cramped apartment. So yes, I am making more. The next I guess I can plug in my show. My next show is November 21st at Higher Pictures. It's a Friday. And you'll see a new iteration of new works, new pieces. It's called Leftovers because it's things that couldn't fit. If you can believe it, it could not fit in this platform. So I'm using the leftover materials and to create the new installation. So a lot like this, I'm getting to explore more of presentation, different kinds of folding techniques, and different ways of looking and collapsing these parts. Because I'm looking for other words that are fragments, right? But yeah, it's something I definitely want to return to. I see myself creating the parts from it. These are all, I wanted to stress, these are not found on the internet. These are all pictures that I've made. These are all pictures that I literally spent years just making and not knowing that they're going to be published. Again, it's like if you look at my CV, I definitely have shown, but it's not something I consciously think about when I make these pictures. And I think it's important to point out that it's not from the internet because history does not account for the individual foundation. And there's something beautiful about using ourselves, using our biographies, using our family, something that's so specific that the internet, it's not in history books. It's not something you can walk into a thrift store and find.
I like that's such a it's a great sort of bringing together of different aspects of photography, right? It's like the specificity and like the indexicality, right, of all of your actual experiences. And then at the same time, you're kind of shredding it all, right? You're taking it out of context, you're like putting it in a shaker and then like respreading it all out again. And so I love that you're combining these different ways of thinking about the medium. Um, Okay, we have I think we're good on time. So I have a couple more questions for you.
It's good.
Um, can you talk a little bit about the catalog? And then I have a couple random questions for you because I can think the catalog there's going to be a catalog for this show, right? And really talk a little bit about the catalog.
Oh my gosh, this is where definitely Rachel and my other people who I work with and collaborate like Higher Pictures are definitely way more amazing and on top of it because I'm so bad at self-promotion. I think it's the part of the self-portraiture. It's like my demeanor is like I forget to do PR. And so, yes, there is a catalog. Let me plug it in. Jane Ursula Harris did the text for the book. It's going to come out, I think, in time of the holidays this year alone. So be on the lookout. We just got these amazing installation pictures from Julia Featheringill, whose name is right there. She did all the documentation. We love her. She's amazing. I'm a legacy Russell who thank people who helped me. So that's why I always plug in names. I drop names. Sorry, also jump off trains of thoughts. Oh my God, I forgot what I was talking about. Uh,
Catalog, people writing for the
catalog.
catalog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
this is it's why I'm bad at it because I just like get halfway there and jump off the train and then forget to talk about like Ocean Bone provided two I contributed two poems for the catalog. There's an amazing installation. It's a really great just I yeah it's I don't know how I feel amazing just to have a catalog to have a museum space. I'm trying not to cry just because I do cry a lot. This year alone, there's just a lot of reasons to cry for me. And cry on my behalf, and just for me to cry. And it is an amazing experience. If there's a lesson to be looking at me, I hope that this is what it looks like to support an artist. This is what it looks like if you're thinking about someone that you want to support art through donating, to spend time with communities that put together these shows that nominate people. Like this is what it looks like. I just never thought I would have a solo show like this. I think just to answer more of your question, just so much of like of just not seeing what it means to see all of this together. I just never thought about that. Wouldn't think I would be an artist that people would want to see this in a room, let alone three rooms.
Well, I think it's a I think you showed them all wrong, Tommy. Um,
Yeah.
um, well, okay. I would like to go like circle back to maybe some of the things we talked about a little bit earlier, and I want to ask you about
Yeah.
place, because we talked about self-portraiture, but I think place is also a really important theme of your work, and I wondered if well, so okay, there's place, and then in some of the interviews, I think when I was reading about you or essays, people always bring up the fact that Eggleston was from Memphis and from Tennessee, and I wondered about your relationship to Tennessee and Memphis, and then let's maybe also Eggleston.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's really hard to talk about Memphis and Tennessee at the state of political climate. It's just really hard because it's like I know some people are really hurting back in Tennessee. This is like a space that's not. I am more for not, I'm more for the most good for the most people and not curtailing anyone's like experience of being a person. I don't want people to hurt other people, and I think people should have the right to be who they are. I don't think it's like I can't speak on more specific than that other than like, yeah, I can't go home right now. It's not like it's a privilege for me to say that I choose not to go home because I don't want to mess with the National Guard. I don't want to. It's like I already have so many things I have to weigh, and that I implore that people look at what is going on, not just in Memphis. That is something I would is important for me to be a photographer. Is that I'm coming from a background that is haunted by Dora Welty's words. By its history and its past. So there's a little bit of always Eggleston being referenced. He's a good mentor friend of mine. The family has always been very, very supportive of me, and I'm very thankful for all these communities and have really played a huge role. Place is so important. Place like Memphis has been a place, a setting, a backdrop for these things I've always been curious and interested in trying to answer through the medium of photography and hopefully through collage and performance. It's really about the people that are there, the communities that look out for each other that I really do take away from Memphis. It's less about trying to make work that looks like Christian Berry, Eggleston, or Sally Mann because of the three names that have always come up. And I say those names because I went to school in Memphis College of Art. I went to undergrad. I went to Yale, but I brought a lot of things with me because no one could point out Memphis on the map, oddly, you know? It was less about um, Eggleston for people, but Elvis, pop culture, things that people kind of know the state by through these pictures. But I think people mistake the Southern American landscape as a place stuck in time. It's filled with people with progressive ideas. It's filled with people thinking about what it means to help other places. If it's also a place that we need to learn lessons from, where there are multiple information, multiple. I'm trying to pick my words carefully here because it could be misconstrued. Multiple things that can exist in a singular landscape. So I'm less about trying to be faithful to what is the fact that I'm interested in, but rather the palimpsest, what gets
Mm.
painted and written on top of, right? The erasure, it's less about the erasure, but the mistranslation. It's more about what comes through from beneath the paint, beneath the pages that we don't get to see. And I think that the South is just a really great place to look at, it's not about appreciating the color work of Eggleston or the black and white landscape of Sally Mann's work, but what those pictures mean for younger artists. There's so many different kinds of artists with different various backgrounds that I really want to name, and I'm just drawing up like, oh my God, I'm so bad at this. Like Sora Murph and Ramel, Ross, Jose, Jade. I'm trying to name names just to make, and I'm only getting like the first name, so I'm sorry for that.
No, but it makes that makes sense. Like, and to me, it kind of goes back to the installation work a little bit, that the specificity of place is important to your work, but it's not a complete fidelity, right? So the fact that the work is made in Memphis, or because all of your work is titled by a lot of your work is titled by the place, right? So the actual place itself seems to be really important, but then it's not so much, as you say, about honoring or about completely revealing the place, but how the pom-pom set, or how it informs the images that were made there. Um,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think the slippage of what is precious, especially like if you look at how images are consumed, like
Mm.
photography, social media, I hope people visit museums. I hope people visit galleries more. I hope people buy more books in general because photography is available outside of the computer screen, outside of our phones. And I think we can be used to multiple places of looking at pictures. There's something about looking at different ways, different images, different types of images that we recognize photographs as photographs.
Mhm.
Images are images, but there's some images that are photographs that we subconsciously by now all speak in and can recognize
Mhm.
across the board, across the Western canon. It's outside of ourselves. It's available on people's phones and most everywhere in the world. And I love that accessibility. I don't think you have to be in a place or be familiar with Memphis or be familiar with Florence, Alabama, like this, or Muscle Shoals, Alabama, at the Wilson Dam, or the history of it, but really what it means to hone in on the spaces that are going to change, that are going to be not no longer here, but also that is something here and available and maybe not as urgent, but maybe can be appreciated in different ways, or maybe provide a puzzle to people who don't need to turn the camera directly onto themselves to make self-portrait work. It's not really about making the work um, with a cap with a defined parameter. I think there's so much that can be unpacked and that it's been there historically that we kind of tend to overlook. And also shout out to Studio Lynn for designing my catalog. See those information just start popping up. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. I think I'm supposed to say, I can say that, right? Rachel's somewhere on here, so she can check it out.
No, that's great. And I like what you said about the internet and the way that that changes our the way that we approach and think about photography, because so much of your work about some of the language in your work about embodiment and disembodiment, right? And we are disembodied all the time, constantly on our phones, and the way that you sort of make that really literal through your photographs is quite telling. I don't know, was that, do you find that the internet culture has, does it infuse your work, or is it something that you move away from as you're getting over time?
That's a nice balance. I think that it's like the AI or Photoshop question is like making sure that I am getting what I need out of it and it's not taking advantage of me, right? It's
Mm.
not taking advantage of my ideas. I think it's to point out the installation in particular is this idea of recycling, especially really small things of like what does it mean to work with test strips, working with excess with material that might not that will be discarded, right? Like and a lot of the works from previous exhibitions ended up in the cutout work and the installation because they were a vinyl sticker and I didn't want to throw it away because it was over $100, like with a one-time use thing. So I think with like social media it has like kind of influenced that there is a way to recycle things. There is an image in the installation picture that shows a garden that's covered in a blue tarp, and that is something I point out that my grandmother did and a lot of my aunts I've done was using this recyclical nature of growing that garden through the discarded leftovers of the herbs and Thai basil seeds that was in the takeout. And that's how they grew the garden. And so I think there's some lessons um, that appears with social media, like to show it and not live with the photograph is not up my app. It's not my speed. I like to figure out what that means, especially that I'm not in that mindset to do so. I'm always about making the next thing. But to get to be surprised by the work, to kind of hopefully be led to the next loose threads that I'm trying to explore. I think it all comes together through the idea of recycling things that might be influenced by the internet and what not to do is my I think what not to do, what is not working and what I don't want to do is a good choice. Like it's like I don't need to be that kind of artist.
Mhm. I think that'll be really helpful for our students that are hopefully watching this. We're almost at the end of the interview, Tommy, and I wondered if you could give us a little preview of what next. I know you talked about the your exhibition that's coming up. Is there anything else that you'd like to reflect on in closing, or talk about what's going forward?
The for the show is gonna be so good. I can't wait for you guys to see it. November 21st, Friday this year would be my next solo show at Higher Pictures. There is a Bluff City Chinese short documentary screening that we're putting together with Andy Kai and Emmy, who is in one of the pictures in this show. They did an amazing doc that everyone should watch. There is some information about it, Bluff City Chinese. I'm very blessed and grateful to use and be connected with people, especially through the internet, through Instagram, social media. The one good thing about it is connecting with people that are having similar thoughts that I do, that are not in photography, but are thinking about how are we preserving, how are we archiving, how are we honoring the past, and also thinking about this contemporary, where we stand in it. Those are I'm trying to think of some other things that are coming up, but yeah,
Could you
be
say
on
the
the
name of the
lookout.
documentary again?
Bluff City Chinese, Dandy Kai and Emmy. Oh my God, I never had to say Emmy's last name, but Emmy's name is somewhere floating around, and I will post more about that. You can check it out at the
Thank
Addison
you.
Gallery's upcoming programming.
Great.
Baxter Street, I'm doing portfolio reviews November 8th, so be on the lookout for that. If you guys if you're in New York City, because I like to work with young artists that aren't my students. So yeah, watch out for content. Maybe I'm gonna stop talking because some of next year's stuff might not be for me to say quite yet.
That's fine. So in closing, we have a couple more minutes, Tommy. What advice do you have for younger artists? Because I know that you teach and that you are a really generous presence for up and coming artists. And so I wondered if you have any advice or thoughts for them in parting.
Oh man, I always feel bad about like not answering this in a really full, realized way, but identity isn't everything. You don't have to show everything, but make those pictures. Mostly with photography these days, it's kind of free. So, I mean, unless you're working in analog film, but make the pictures. They can be in your head, but you don't know until you try it out. There's a lot of good things that will happen when you're not being looked at. So if you're someone that is getting a lot of rejection letters, keep going. I want to see people's trajectories that are not the same. They're not filled by the same kind of reflective CV of undergrad to graduate school all the time. There are many wonderful different kinds of artists that I am so excited to meet all the time. It's like, why be an artist if you not get to meet like other people in your community? So go see a show, go walk, take a hike, go look at stuff, because even the smallest gestures, I try to remind people, it's like you don't have to make grand big things. You just have to take a step back and readjust yourself. And the things that you're thinking about will come up. If not
That's
now, down the line.
that's great advice for everybody. Thank you, not just younger artists. So I appreciate that. I think we're just at about time, Tommy Magley. Is there anything else, Tommy, you'd like to add before we?
I feel like I do the quote thing at the end? Do we have time for that? Is there any questions from the
We have a few questions. We could do the quote after the Q&A.
yeah, let's do some
But
Q&As. Yeah.
thank you both so much. This was such a wonderful conversation. The first question comes from Eddie Bressler. I'm going to give you a button to unmute Eddie.
Hi. Actually, first of all, my name is Edie Bresler, but that's okay. Everybody makes that mistake. It's 1D. And thank you so much, Tommy. It was a wonderful talk. You talk so much about making, and I really relate to that as a longtime photographer, this idea of, construction in place and not relying on, Photoshop and especially now AI. And I wonder how important it is for you as the creator that viewers understand that you are an artist who actually crafts and makes and don't rely. I mean, I ask this question because oftentimes I go to photography shows with friends who are painters, printmakers, sculptors, and their assumption is always very dismissive of, oh, well, it's all just done on the computer. And there was this sort of back and forth um, trying to get people to understand, no, actually, so many of us come from
Mhm.
a deep space of intentionality and craft and making.
Yeah, that's such a wonderful question. I feel like, Edie, I think this is something between my default. I feel like I get variations of this question, and my first thing is like we don't, as artists, we don't get to choose when we're recognized. We don't get to really we can only control our intentions and how we make the work. Whether that lands or not, like I think we're in full control of how much effort and things that we want things to land. I think a little bit of DNR business code, like some things we cannot help. Because I think those are important when viewers or other people, when you hang things on the wall, it allows the other people to bring in this information that we might not otherwise have ourselves. Like everyone's from different experiences and backgrounds. So it is scary to share work. It is scary to put up work. And it's also kind of a lesson for artists, for us, for ourselves. It's like there are some things we have to not be so precious of. It's like our work is going to be miscontextualized. It will be in group shows. Having one photograph be representative out of 20 or 10-year worth of work is going to happen all the time. It happens now with Instagram, like with one picture, just like, oh, this is so and so, maybe three, if we're lucky, 10 pictures. But I think that's kind of Monday for me, you know? And I'm less concerned about it. There's something really wonderful once you let go of those like distractions and really go back to what is important. Yeah, how do we get funding? How do we make something out of nothing, right? I think those are more important to focus on in these days because there is definitely a long history of people figuring out how to do those two things. And it's less about trying to be precious about the craft. If the skills are really coming across, there are definitely two or three people, and maybe even a smaller sect of people of your audience that will understand that process and appreciate it. And those are the people that I hang around with and I happen to work with all the time through printing my work or the gallery shows. And I think those are the importance. And it's hard. It's really hard to say those things and try to, no, it's really this. And it's like, no, not necessarily, but let's have this conversation because I'd rather have the conversation and then rather to be defensive, right? Rather than be protective. It's not my place to be defensive. And if I make something problematic or if we make something interesting, both problematic and interesting, it's really about being able to have that conversation with the other person.
Thank you for that question, Edie, and thank you for the answer, Tony. The next question is going to come from Chloe.
Thank you so much for this conversation, Tommy and Billy. It's been such a pleasure to listen to. Tommy, I read that one time you said that you're a cutout of your mother when you were taking her portrait and you think of yourself that way. Looking at the installation and the current show and thinking about everything that you've talked about with Billy in regards to fragmentation, I'm really curious what your philosophy of the cutout is, both when you're using Photoshop, but also especially when you're rendering the cutout this physical, tangible thing that you're playing with and collecting and archiving. Like how does that How has that changed your relationship to this mechanism that you've been using for a really long time?
I don't know. There's something physicality of it. It's like less about the Photoshop. In fact, I think the only Photoshop that is really done is the color grading and contrast and saturation, color mixing to cropping. I've never really explored compositing like my cutout because I think the surreal magic realism kind of comes out of photographing this fragmented picture. It's a picture of a picture, right? And I think there's something really simplistic about that approach that I feel has made the work accessible to people. There's like really something off, and often that thing that's off is my body. That thing that's out of place in the picture is this image that's previously made in different lighting or contextual landscape context. And there's, yeah, I think there's I think it just hit. I'm just so lucky that I've hit this kind of weird lottery ticket of it's not I'm not the first person. And so before I finish this question, it's like this has been very not of my wheelhouse. There's the Connolly fairies, the cousins in the 1910s, right? That cut out pictures of fairies and presented it as real photographs. And people ate that up, you know? Like the writer of Sherlock Holmes thought that was real. And really I'm thinking of so much of these like kind of cutouts and thinking about Bruce Lee, which is a random figure to think about. But when he passed away, during lockdown, there's a Reddit comment. It's like, oh yeah, when Bruce Lee passed away during Game of Death filming, they had to employ stunt doubles, body lookalikes, a cardboard cutout of his face that the extra had to sit behind an image, and you can see those cutouts in that movie. And I just love that there are things that I wasn't conscious about that has played out through history. So it is something like I just feel like it's a weird luck of the draw that I just worked on it for so long that it ended up there's a historical context that I just didn't realize.
Love that.
So
Thank you so much for that answer, Tommy.
so great.
Thank you for that question, Chloe. The next question is going to come from Joshua. Sorry, from Joshua.
Hi, Tommy. I'm so looking forward to this catalog that you've been talking about throughout this conversation. I know you mentioned that it will feature a couple poems by Ocean Vuong. And so sort of in thinking about this aspect of the catalog and even the poetic valences of the word fragmentation that you revisit or you return to, can you talk about how you view the relationship between your art practice and poetry or poetic tradition?
Oof. Oh God, I hope Todd Papa George isn't sitting on this or read this. He's gonna be so surprised. It's like, well, I feel like a lot of the literary information or the context of that is filled because of being in the Yale MFA photography program and just coming into that year at the time that I did. I'm not the strongest writer at all. We checked. It's not good. That's why I refuse to write. And I just think if I was told like you'll play into your strength. It's like my strength is knowing that I'm not the best writer. That's why like my artist statement is takes a form of bullet points. And it's such a weird, and it works, you know. I was like, oh yay, I don't have to write a paragraph. Thank God. So it's just these one-off sentences, and they kind of read like poems, but I wouldn't call myself a writer. I wasn't trained as it. But I do implore people to hang out with painters. I do implore artists to hang out with writers, musicians, all kinds of different makers, drag queens, transgender folks, women, like all kinds of people that might not inform your practice, but we need all kinds of different experiences outside of ourselves. So I think to be surrounded by poetry, writing that even if I'm not a professional at it, I get to appreciate that. I think there is an art to being able to be grateful and fulfilled by just reading something that is so simple by putting words together. And I think it goes back to not having to think about making grand gestures or even unique work because we are unique. Every action that we do are informed by people that taught us. There's no way any individual is going to make the same gestural strokes or actions. So no need to make unique works. Everything we do is already unique to ourselves.
Thanks so much for that.
Thank you for that question, Joshua. The last question is going to come from Fong, and I'll give you a chance to unmute Fong.
Thank you so much, Tommy. Thank you, Billy. Boy, Billy speaks so fast. It's amazing. And your answer is so slow, Tommy. Deliberate. Very nice. I like the contrast. You mentioned of course the great Elvis Presley from Memphis, but there were tons of other musicians there, you know. My favorite are Coco Taylor. She's from there. Memphis Minnie is from there. Johnny Cash from there. Al Green is from there. Aretha Franklin from there. Who else? Oh my God. Carl Perkins from there. Tons of other people from there. I've been there a few times. My question is very simple. How did you get to be so free in your play? You know, in the field of photography, it's so restrained. It's so technical driven at time, most of the time. But so to be playful, it's not something that would associate with the processes of photography. So I want to ask you where that element come from. This because it entails certain fearlessness, the anticipation of failure. So that's number one question. Number two question, when you at Yale, did you manage to study with my friend John Pilson
Oh, yes.
and other?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Maybe reverse the answer the first one, second first, and second later. First later. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Shout out to John Pilson. Yeah, I think John has been the first person to really make sure that he was looking at my work, unlike my classmates that were sometimes not understanding. I think we were all me and two my classmates at Yale. We were just like all at different levels and places in our lives and our careers. And I think it was really, I'm so thankful for John, who I feel like I take after him. I'm just like all the references. Because if you talk to John, it's like he can really spin a thread of just like pulling out one needle in a haystack and just finding all these other things that are really interested and intricately connected to what we're thinking. He's so great to talk about with process, about photography, about references, and how it's maybe not to coalesce all of that. But I think yeah, I think there's an encouragement of the humor coming from John and Greg and maybe on me later. I didn't have on me as much on the Yale panel, but things that like Laura Nakadate, Rick Moody, they're really people. But before, I think I would have to cite Pixie Liao. She has a really great show up in Chicago at SAIC.
Yeah.
I get the institution is confused. But she's the first person before Ren Hong is this Pixie was the work, and we incidentally were in opposite schools in Memphis, and I was just like, I really wish there was someone that's humorous or making work. And I think the humor was where play came in for me. And it was only because of Pixie's work with Laura, her partner, and that made me realize like, oh, I can make serious work but I also can make funny work. And I think so much about court jesters in the past being able to make jokes to kings without fear of being beheaded, right? They're the ones that often are allowed to speak truths. And not that I think my humor I'm using in my photographs result or is a direct lineage to truth, but I think humor is really interesting. It's like math. It creates a distance, right? Humor creates a it creates that awkward position that gives you a bit of safety, like mask, like the camera being placed between the subject and the photographer. There is that distance that I recognize that is both safety and also the kind of, depending on a way around it, humor can also be used to get to the point. right? We laugh at jokes because we might get the punchline right away, and we don't need the whole joke to be explained. So I like that humor is presence, and I think it had to be really validated by seeing this plaque at the Smithsonian in Miami. I have all these citations, right, where things I've seen, and it was this I forget the piece, but it was just showing the drama and comedy mask, and it just explained how much both uh, Greek playwrights believe that human experience has a basis in both tragedy and humor.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Especially one that come from an immigrant perspective.
child of immigrants too, just grappling.
Yep.
What does it mean to be first generation? If it's
Yeah.
your parents or if it's you, what do we
Yeah.
keep? What is lost in translation?
Yeah. I still don't get it all. You know, they are humor, American humor. Whoo, may sometimes take me days and weeks to get it, you know?
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that's is the
and,
beauty and the
and then
surprise of it.
sometimes I tell my first one, oh, well, you did both. It's a very cool side note. The two tune in for Bruce Lee, you know, he was so famous. I still remember the day he died, July 20th, 1973. I was still in Da Nang after having moved from our home from Quang Tri that was bombed from the year before. Bruce Lee was huge. So the two standing for Bruce Lee, one fellow named Yong Bao and the other one is Kim Tai Yong. Would you believe it? They didn't turn out to any well-known actor or anything. It's just that they happened to look like him. So they were trained in order to fill in when he died halfway through the game of death.
My God, it's that movie is such a weird thing. As much as Teresa Hakian Chaw's dictates, like
Yeah.
this, it's so weird of how it's so iconic. And I'm
Yeah.
trying not to do the obvious reason, but there is something not obvious that
Uh-huh.
they got to experience, even in depth, just this weird,
Yeah.
how do you look at Bruce Lee in the correct way through his stunt double, the body double? There's like probably 7 different ways they had to finish the filming of that movie. It's so interesting.
You know who know all of the statistic and history behind it? Who I met once? Quentin Tarantino. He know everything about Bruce Lee better than anybody I ever known.
Oh
Super
my God,
weird. Well, it
man.
makes sense because Kill Bill is sort of model after the aesthetic, you know, when you think about it. Well, I mean, come on. It's congratulations, Tommy. Thank you, Billy, for the compelling conversation. I need to go back and re-listen to it and hopefully fly there to Addison or to see it.
Yes, it's
The
so fun.
show. Yeah, can't wait. Thank you so much for coming on to our NSE, you guys. It's been super interesting to listen. I can't wait to re-listen again. So thank you again. Back to you, Mackley. Gracias.
Thank you for thank you, Billy.
Tommy is gonna close us out with a quote, so I'll hand you the mic, Tommy, before we close this out.
Thank you so much, Magley. Thank you so much to the Brooklyn Rail, the Addison Gallery, the Hayes Prize, and the Addison Artist Council. This is going to be the quote that kind of informed the finding the show title of Other Things Othered. So this is from Teresa Hakian Cha. If words are to be othered, they would be from behind the partition. Unaccountable is distance, time to transport from this present minute. If words are to be sounded, impressed through the partition in ever slight measure to the other side, the other signature, the other hearing, the other speech, the other grasp. To extract each fragment by each fragment from the word, from the image, another word, another image, the reply that will not repeat history in oblivion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tommy. What a beautiful way to close us out. Thank you, Tommy and Billy. Thank you, Rebecca from Addison Gallery of American Art, for their support in preparing today's event. We'd also like to thank the Terra Foundation for American Art and the Tiger Foundation for sponsoring our NSE program and making these daily conversations possible, and for their support of our growing archive, which you can view on the Rails YouTube channel. The Rail has been free and independent for 25 years. A donation directly supports our writers, staff, and operations. Support our work through the link in the chat. And if you're free, join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. for a conversation with Mimi Gross, Susan B., and Charles Bernstein on the event of Ruckus Manhattan at the Brooklyn Museum. And as Israel tradition, you can now all unmute and say hello and goodbye as you leave. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Tommy and
Thanks so
Billy.
much.
Thank
you,
Billy.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Billy.
Thank you, Billy.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Billy.
Tommy.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, Billy. Congratulations, you guys.
Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
guys. Thanks, y'all.
Go see the show.